Welcome to the Creative Spaces Podcast with Guy Zwick and Scott Samil of Highway 85 Creative. In each episode, we will discuss creative ways to define your space and build your brand.
Welcome to another edition of the Creative Spaces Podcast. I'm Scott Samil, your co-host, and I'm joined today by none other than
Guy Zwick.
Chief Energizing Officer, Chief Creative Officer, Chief.
I'll take it all. Or Mr. Grinch.
And here, there's that too. And then our third partner in crime is
Joe Anderson.
There he is. All three of us here in the studio.
Not Mr. Grinch because I'm like a poop, but because
he's a poop.
Oh, I guess fine.
There's a lot of ways. Anyway, it's a bit of a special podcast in that we don't have any specific one topic to talk about. We're going to jump around a little bit, try to have some fun, hit some highlights from this year, talk about next year, stream of conscious, no real outline to follow, right, outside of that?
Yeah, we're going rogue.
So, going rogue. Let me start off with this. Let me just throw this out there. 2018, pretty big year for you guys, right?
I think it's a big year for the industry, too.
Talk. Elaborate. Please.
Trade shows and events are not dead and not dying. It's growing and it's getting bigger and it's getting better. And that's good for us who love this industry and are making a living in this industry. But we've been hearing, my whole career, like, trade shows are on the decline, and whether it was the internet's coming, we're going to have virtual WebExes and we're going to have virtual trade shows, and just like it's been this running theme throughout my career, and I'm just watching the more that technology comes into play in the social aspects, the bigger the face-to-face is becoming.
And good point. So I've been around in the industry for quite some time myself, and it's always a death bell. Always, it's over. They do cost a lot of money. Trade shows do cost a lot of money.
But they're becoming more than the trade show floor itself. And I think that's the key thing that we should talk about here.
Okay, how do you mean? Is
the activations and the events that are going, all these activations that are happening outside of just that booth space, just that exhibit hall. A lot of these show organizers, a lot of the bigger companies, in some respects, even the cities themselves, are seeing that this is a bigger opportunity to have off-site events, on-site, and that's another trend too, is having more on-site events. I'm going to be all over the place, but let's just talk about making it more of an event. So this has been happening slowly but surely in some of the major shows, and CES, because that's coming up and we're preparing, is probably the best example of it, but it's happening on some of the small medical shows or the small, niche market shows. But that is the ta-da moment for a lot of new product launches, to have, celebrity I'm not doing a great job of explaining this.
We'll go back to where you were.
Well, let's go back to.
You're trying to make an event
think of CES. It's more of just a singular event. You take CES as an example, and just about every major company is going to have a CEO, have a huge keynote speech and talk about new products, talk about the state of the industry, and people say, that happened before. Not to the scale it is now. Now you're making it Hollywood-ish. Now you're throwing after parties. And then it's trickling down to even some of the smaller players. You're just doing it in smaller senses. They're getting together and activating, industry specific events. And you're just turning in the trade shows more than just sending your 4 or 5 sales rep, your marketing person, your chief operating officer, and showing up to your 20 by 30 space. There's a lot more deals going on. And then I'll just talk about it. We're not there just to have a good time, but they're there to make deals and find new vendors. So there's a big emphasis on the vendors throwing events on the outside to attract. I'll give you an example.
Yeah,
I had a plastics manufacturer who is been courting at these medical shows, these medical device shows, medical device companies. to build their stuff in Malaysia or wherever it is. But they're seeing the opportunity to come to this show. They're not technically in this industry. Walk these shows, throw a party on the outside to get some of these people to come, and then they've introduced themselves to a collection of 100 people that they would have had to have flown all over the world and country, and they would have had to have found the right timing and all that. Instead, they just threw a big event and something that they knew they could talk to those people with, and made it happen. Okay, so
as you're talking, I'm thinking of a few things, and I'm not gonna just let me get through this before you jump in.
Yeah.
Close to about 7-8 months ago now, we interviewed and had a nice podcast on site over at what's the company we sat with? He introduced us to that 1942.
Oh yeah, Nexus 21.
Nexus 21.
Yep.
And then we talked about if you're going to go to a trade show, if you're going to do one, do it right, and like what you're talking about. And I think what you're really saying is, listen, they can be incredible. Yes, be thankful, but to do them right, you really got to take your time and think about what you're going to do. So, yeah, it's an industry event is always going to have some kind of pull. Use that momentum. Go there, have an offsite, have an executive roundtable. Do some things in and around that event because the people you want to talk to, both end users, channel partners, biz dev people, they're all there. Mm-hmm. So it goes back to your little, your kits the cheat sheets, your how to do trade shows better. What'd you guys call it? Your
the GPS kit.
Yeah, the GPS kit from last year's Exhibitor Live. You if you're going to do a trade show, don't go if you're just going to show up with T-shirts.
No,
but think of it as an opportunity to kick some ass, right? And I know it's a recurring theme because when I help out in a consultative role, some of my clients, some large, but mostly middle-sized, they check the box on a trade show. And it's very hard to get them internally to say, okay, why are we going? What's the objective? What are we going to do? What's the pre-stuff?
Let's be honest about this because what he just referenced, I helped you with this particular client of yours.
One of them.
And one of them, right. And without saying names, we were just checking off boxes in the end.
Sure.
And sure, it was a successful show and everything went well. But from my perspective, and I think you'd agree with me, I'd say we were just checking off boxes. And when we tried to push some more planning and envelope, there's just a lot of dynamics and a lot of things going on that corporate level that we just ended up checking off boxes. But let me just say this, because
I'll come back to that, but go ahead.
This is something, what I was saying earlier, there's this aspect, and I've seen, because things have been well, I've had a lot of medium-sized clients and maybe some clients who don't like to put certain spend and go out there a little bit. Because everyone's doing well, people have been trying some things that they weren't doing in the last 5-6 years. I'm saying my own clients.
Okay.
So they're saying, hey, let's throw in some AV. Hey, let's have what is this augmented reality? What could we do here?
Right.
Or should we this VR? I just had someone want to go down this VR route, and definitely wasn't for them. But just the fact that she was having the conversation with me was like, whoa. Okay. So this is what's interesting. All the ones that have gone and looked at technology or looked at doing things some differently, or some of these people that I've been asking to get out of the box, let's look at another industry, look what they're doing, let's plop what they're doing over there integrate it into what you do in your industry, and you'll be a standout at that show. They were reluctant, and they've been because things have been well, they've been willing to try things, and guess what? A lot of them are having way more success than they ever did. And all I can say is I want to encourage them not to forget this when things get tight and then you don't want to do those things anymore. But it's interesting. You finally get them over a hump, and they're seeing it. I just want them to see, like, you really do have to plan. If you do push a little bit on these envelopes at these shows and take the money out, I mean, money's a thing, but be more result driven and be able to check the boxes off that you did the goals, you got the ROI, you got the sale, you got the lead. The money isn't as big a deal.
this is
you know,
a
we've
huge,
said that in a lot of things. You know,
right.
Like I said,
it's a huge shift in thinking, though.
$100,000 to get $1 million, you say yes, but you only want to spend 10. But it's only because you're not checking off this. We're only checking off the list over here. Am I getting all the value for the 10 grand or the 100 grand?
No, so there's a couple points I want to jump on there. So I agree, and I'll use one of my clients. And you talked about corporate stuff. A huge part of doing a show right, doing an event right, is corporate alignment. Everybody on the inside has to be on the same page. So if you have a CEO who wants one thing, a CMO who wants something different, and then you have supporting cast within there that aren't quite sure what they're trying to do, you cannot have a successful show across the board if you don't have alignment up front. So you have to have a corporate team that embraces what you just said. And I know there's a lot of analogies you can spin off of this, but the bottom line is if you're going to go to a show, everybody on the inside has to be completely on the same page with, we're spending X, but the results that we're going to get from that more than overpower what the dollars are. Don't worry about this show being $20K or $40K. If you spend $50K but you get 5 actual leads, it paid for itself. But it's really, really hard.
No, it is hard.
In my experience with certain clients, because you have, first off, if you're a high-tech company, right? You might have a campaign that's sort of a standalone campaign for that trade show, and it takes a lot for that campaign to get written, and data sheets and landing pages and emails, and product managers have to sort of write these things out. And then the show's over and they go on to the next, and that's the wrong way to go about it. You should be planning, like you said, if you're going to do it right. And it might just mean for you as a team, don't do 10 shows, but do 1 show and do it right. Mm-hmm. And that's even that decision is hard to make because you have different constituents within the company. Oh no, I have to have this show in rural Iowa. No, I have to do this show in Barcelona or whatever the example is. It's you almost as a trade show owner, as an exhibit house owner, you almost have to go in there as a consultant and say, let's break this out for you. If you're gonna go to a show, why are you going, right? And explain. Let's talk about how we can get to your why. And if we're being honest, like you said before, I think something like 20% of the companies actually do this, if that, right? Mm-hmm. We'd like to see more because if more people do it, more people change the way they think, they'll get more success. Don't think of trade shows as just, I'm doing one right now, right? Or I'm helping to do one right now. And booth space alone, $50,000, right? Travel, I&D, laborers, transportation, graphics, $150,000 for a show for a 10 by 30. Without a lot of pre, during, and post planned. And bluntly, that's a waste of money, correct? It could be considered.
It could be considered a waste of money.
So
yes.
I say that to draw an example that says trade shows aren't going away. Most high-tech companies still have trade shows as a big part of their budget, but they're not utilizing that opportunity. And this is a recurring theme. And I wonder if in 2019 we can almost try to evangelize, almost do case studies for people that the light turns on. Nexus 21 being one of them, but maybe some of your clients, because we almost want to make them, show people that, listen, you can do a 10 by 20 show and really bring the noise, but be smart about it, Be smart about who goes, what you're saying, what the result is. Is there an offsite? Is there a party at your booth? Don't just show up to say, hey, I won best booth and people noticed us. No. I mean, what are we trying to achieve, right? That's the hardest part.
I'll share something that in a meeting I had with Gary Vee, which I was excited to hear him.
Gary Vee.
Yes, I was excited to hear Gary articulate this, since he's such a social media guy. Having discussions about face-to-face with him, marketing was fun. But it's just how we roll. It's how we rolled at our own exhibitor show. It's how I like to push my clients, and that is this. And people say they want to stand out. They say they want to rise above and be seen, but they don't want to do the things that they don't really want to. And the only thing he had said that I thought was just smart about this is that in this trade show landscape is that you don't want to be living in the middle. It's all about extremes. You either want to be out here. We're all about the extremes at the moment. He gave some cool examples of even the clubbers that, have the champagne bottles. Now, you don't just get champagne. It's, they have the sparklers and all the stuff going off that she was talking about, because everyone's got to look over and there's the baller, But it's living in the middle is dangerous. And that's what the majority of the people going to these trade shows, that when I talk about those people that don't plan, they just, when we're talking about checking off boxes, they living in that middle. And they're showing up to show up, and they're saying that they want to get their returns, and they're saying they want to make those sales. They're saying that they want their branding to be X, and they want to stand above, but they're not always willing to really pile down and make those things happen, and or to live on the other extreme. You either want to be a minimalist,
right?
You either want to be a minimalist and stand out in that fashion,
right.
Smart, minimal, smart over here, or you just want to be like pow over here. And he said that, which is, it's simple, and it's what inherently what I'm always trying to push my clients, but it just doesn't happen that often. But when you started to analyze that and compare it to the landscape, even walking around a show like Light Fair or something, you're like, wow, that is what happens. It really is. And even through my lenses, which is very, deep on the trade show, not just, I see things a little different than the average exhibitor walking around. Those who push those envelopes get noticed at those shows, have more success, have a legacy post-show where you're still talking about it or mentioning them, or vice versa. There's these other elements that are more simplistic, and then you're just it's so true. When you go through the sea of 20 by 20 exhibits that are just different colors. In fact, that was a joke at Light Fair. That there probably is 70% red and black and white companies and logos.
Right.
And they're like all next to each other. It's like there was one where there's 4 corners of like 20 by 30 or 40 by 40 or 20 and it was like it looked like one booth, but it had 4 companies because they literally almost had the exact same styles and colors. And
right.
You know what I mean?
No, I do.
I mean, that's an extreme
sure.
of that. But right. But yeah, I don't know.
But let me ask you this. You know how was last year Exhibit Live, we talked to the woman that she called herself the booth mom. You remember her?
Yes. Yeah. Candy.
It's almost like a guy like you could go to any...
We'll give Candy Adams a shout-out. There you go.
Hi, Candy. From a consultative approach, you can go to any kind of a trade show, right, an exhibit floor, and you can be the person that says, you can just say, wow, here's why it's not working for you. You can basically 85% of the shows they're going to be stuck in the middle. You want to be Spartan or you want to be huge. You want to be minimal or you want to go big. Everything in the middle, you're just going to be one of the also-rans. You're just going to get lost. The hard part is defining what is minimal or Spartan and what is big. Because can you see a booth and say, oh, they're going big just by looking at them?
Yes.
Okay. Because my question is, going big might be do something.
And I'm not
just talking.
I'm not just talking structure here.
No, that's my point.
Right?
You can see space. You can see what's going on their actual booth itself. But going big might be, what are the other integrated things that are happening? Right? What's the giveaway? Are there people walking around? Is there an offsite? Are you sponsoring something that's legitimately? Because that's your point about going big, right?
It is. Yeah, and well, to a certain degree, yes.
Sure.
There's so many different levels to it, right?
Okay.
Which we can. I mean, going big could just be you have a 30 by 30 space with no exhibit in it, and you brought 60 staff members who all stand in it. Like, what would that be all about? They're all dressed up in their red and blue outfits, and they're just standing in a booth space, and they're just there to talk to. I mean, you wouldn't even know what to do if you walked by that booth,
right?
Well, guess what? You would have stood out.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
No, I know.
You know what I mean? Or you pull
ahead.
a scheme like happened at CES last year with
Talk
that.
to me.
Oh,
what was the scheme? I think I have an idea where you're going with this. Go ahead.
They did this booth with all this barbed wire and all this, and they were like a makeup company sitting in CES and barbed wire, and they had all these guards out with these like army suits, and then you came in and like I didn't go in it, so I'm only going by the stories. But like and then there's like an axe murderer and a chainsaw going on there. It was like they shut down the booth. Literally, and they roped it off, shut it down. All of us were all talking, what's going on? Why is this big booth all wrapped around? What's all the barbed wire? There's guards out in front of it. Like, is this a scheme? Yeah. And then turned out, and then they're out protesting. I guarantee you it was all pre-programmed.
Sure.
And they got all the publicity you can imagine in the first few days and post.
It was a makeup company?
One of the most memorable things of CES.
One of my clients, good friend of mine, always had this idea of, let's buy a big booth space, but have the big exhibit be nothing but like a fold-out chair with an old-school black phone with a little card knock. So it's completely minimalistic. And then when you dial the number, something happened off-site. But like at least people would remember you. Have you ever had a client that went that route? You created a Highway 85 creative. Have you ever had a?
No.
Would you like one?
Yes.
Let's make that a goal in 2019.
Yeah.
So let me ask you another question.
Going big means different to different companies, industries, shows.
When you say go big,
shows
what we're just saying is just be super creative and don't just get stuck in the middle. There's ways you can go big by going small in a way, but by going minimal. That's
for some people, like some of these shows are really the show the show owners themselves are really getting better at putting on the shows. So for some, it's just like, hey, just be a sponsor. You would have never sponsored and put your name out on the front of the trade show or on the elevators coming up.
Right.
That's all you need. For you, that is big.
Right.
For your little 10 by 20 out in the big corner over there,
okay.
A $50,000 sponsorship spend and being in the book and all that's big for what you guys, and it would have dividends. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to build, a double-decker, bring in an actual airplane and put it in your booth space. For some that would be the case.
So
right?
You're okay with? You're saying for some companies it might work for them to spend the $50,000 to be a bronze sponsor or a silver sponsor, just because there's some notoriety there. Mm-hmm. Because are you saying if they had say $100 to spend? Should they just not even? Should they have a teeny booth, but then go? It might be the answer for them to have a small little space that just holds meetings, and then have some sponsorship opportunities going around. Right? That's what you're saying. It could be.
It could be.
So let me ask you another question. If we were going to have some fun, me and you, we collaborated on a project, and we had this booth that was very Spartan, and it was just very something as simple as imagine 4 walls and it was rock climbing, but you don't know what's going on there, and just something like that. How small of a space is too small to do something like here's where I'm going with this. There's a lot of shows that I'm a part of or that I'm aware of that are really just a bunch of 10 by 10s spaces, not any massive ones. There's not much you can do with a 10 by 10 space, right? Most
disagree.
That's why I'm queuing you up. Talk to me about that.
Oh, you're queuing me up.
Yeah.
Oh, you're teeing it up. Now I have to hit the long 400-yard drive. Huh?
No, you just have to tell me why. Validate why you say you disagree. Because I'm used to people showing up. Here's my table, my table skirt, my banner stand,
it's the lowest,
and my giveaways.
It's the lowest entry to play. So in most cases, those little 10 by 10 spaces, you can take the mindset that says, I'm just lost here in linear land over here in the corner, the new people.
Right.
Or you can say, hey, this is the cheapest space I have in here. I'm on the biggest platform for my, medical device or, or technology show or whatever it is. And I got my opportunity to play with the big boys or other players, right? So for one, it's just a mindset change. Right. And then the second thing is number one thing is don't look like every other kit booth that's on that floor and just put new lipstick graphics on something that is duplicated over and over.
Sure.
And I'm not bagging on all modular displays because we sell plenty of them and you can do some unique things and they have their place. But what you're asking me right now, how would I advise somebody is I would go big. And what that would mean would depend on it. But I would just say, if you go to a show or that show the year before or go to some random show, go to those linear 10 by 10, 10 by 20s, take 1 million pictures, okay, and then say, I want to be everything that is not what I have in this group of photos that I'm looking at. You say, what the hell does that mean?
No, keep going with this.
It's
intriguing.
Is figuring out how to stand above that noise. It could be minimalist, right? It could be over the top themed to stand out.
Right.
It could be. I'll tell you in one. God, I feel like I don't want to share secrets of other people's clients, but I'm doing this in a 10 by 20 space for someone, so I'll just speak in generalities. But we're actually designing a booth that is all about why are you here? You just do not look like you belong in this medical. Like, what is this?
Right.
It does. The medical. How do you want to the medicine, if you will?
Right.
We're not displaying the bottle and it is completely like. God, I don't want to give it away. So let's just say all of a sudden you have a country western booth and it looks like you make belts,
right?
And you're sitting in in a full pharmaceutical industry. Right. Everything's white, everything's doctors, everything's steel. It's like, what do you do? Why are you here? And that's it. I just had
that was the deal.
I just had
to shape people like that. Okay.
An extra, 300-400 people just have to say, I'm just curious, what the hell do you do?
Yeah. And
it was like, there was a goal to just look, I'm going for the first time at this event. I want to.
That's smart.
So it's a low entry.
You're doing something like this with a client.
Yep.
So I'm asking
exactly what I just described, but that's
what I'm asking you to do, and Joe to remind him to do is case study that one. Actually, photo, video, even in the planning stages, because that's the kind of thing
and
where
I can
people
guarantee
have to see it to do
I
it
agree,
again.
and that would be smart of us to do. But I can guarantee you, if they would have gone ahead and said, "Look at my 3 other competitors in this space that are in this range of 10 by 20s," I just need to compete against them. I'm going to make something that looks like them, fits into this booth hall. They would just have normal, average, views, if you will. It's like getting. That's what the booth can be for you and your staff, and how you. It's like when you're scrolling through your Instagram or your Facebook and you're rolling down, and something just gets you to stop and look at it. Right? You got to stand above that noise. That's what it is. I mean, just think about that scrolling. What makes you stop? And even if you don't need it, but you open it up and you learn a little bit more, you still want that same effect at the show.
Well, I think not to be forgotten about is all of the other work before the show. Like, going with that booth that stands out is great. It's going to get you traffic on the show floor that didn't know about you beforehand, but that's traffic that didn't know about you beforehand. If you're going to go with a booth that small, then you need to up your game before the show and make sure people know about you beforehand, that you're hitting them on email and social.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Participating in the show hashtag and all of that.
And same thing is that once they're standing there and you've just attracted both people you want to be talking to and you don't want to be talking to, you already have your game plan, and that staff fully knows what their goal is, what they're supposed to say, how they're supposed to, funnel those leads and those people and get that that word out, if you will.
Thank you for listening to Creative Spaces Podcast. For more information about Highway 85 Creative, visit us at highway85creative.com.